Welcome back to Navigating the Ship. Sarah and Annabelle here. Today we're going to talk about the cultural and social changes that are going to be happening because of the coronavirus. I mean, if you think about it, our lives have become, get up early, you haven't had enough sleep, rush off to work, go to the gym afterward, take over this, happen this, take your kid here, run around. I think of all the people who are now like, oh, I can work from home, and when everything gets going again, whenever that is, they're going to be going, I don't want to do this anymore. What do I? Yeah, I think it's going to get us out of the hamster in the wheel mentality we've been in.
I think so too. There's sort of pluses and minuses to this whole stay-at-home thing. Some people getting cabin fever. I think initially they're literally locked in, but and most places aren't quite so strict. But to address whatever issues are with the people that you're living with, maybe now is the time to do it. That's one thing. But some people are getting very, very angry, and usually that is, like you were saying before with your splash out theory, this whole idea of bubbling stuff up that's been simmering and stewing and something stinky inside it can be causing you illness anyway if you have baggage that's just still sitting there unaddressed, and it's so easy to ignore while you're busy. So if you're left with time to contemplate, which is what apparently a cold is meant to be for anyway. When I'd been doing the years of interviews with Mercredan, we'd got on to what is a cold, which of course is part of the coronavirus family. He said, right. I said, why can we never find what causes it? He says it's because your body makes it because you're not taking the time to stop and contemplate. There's something you need to address, or you're overdoing it and you're not looking after yourself. That's the only reason it's there. That's why you can never find where it comes from. And so maybe the world had something to do with this. We've heard that it is man-made, bioengineered, but maybe this is why they chose something like that rather than something like the Black Plague. It still is curious to me. If they really wanted to reduce the population, I'm sure they would have done something far more effective. So maybe it is all about the whole world sitting at home and having a think about the things that you have just been refusing to address for years, perhaps.
Especially your relationships. I mean, there's no busy bee for most people. Some people, of course, are still working or working from home. There's no distractions. There's no sports to watch or talk shows. The only thing to watch is like the news. And it's the same thing over and over again. It's gotten seriously boring.
It is. They can't, people are not scared by it at the moment. We're like, yeah, we've heard that. Well, okay, we got scared. That was last week. Okay, now we're on to something else. Just give us something else. Tell us what else is happening.
The other thing that's happening is people are starting to really see the way the media distorts things, and politicians. This thing with Nancy Pelosi putting all these pork barrel, ridiculous things that here's my bill, and it's like, no.
Changing the voting system in a coronavirus bill? No, I don't get away with that.
No, not happening. Although I guess what finally did pass did include $35 million or something like that for the Kennedy Center, which is a hall where you see music and stuff in Washington, D.C. I'm like, oh, good. That's what we need. But it got passed. Looks like, the average American, I said middle class or lower, will get $1,200 per person.
Is that just a one-off payment?
I think it's just a one-off, although depending on what happens, I think there's a possibility it could happen again. That's what I remember. But at any rate, you're home, you're with your significant other, your stuff is going to be triggered because of the collective consciousness of fear and uncertainty. So the skills to deal with that are really, really important. Corey Good is starting his 10-week program now just on how to clear your old negative stuff. So his timing is pretty spot on.
But there's so much self-improvement courses out there. So if Corey Good doesn't appeal to you, then there's plenty of other teachers out there that have.
Well, I have an online course.
You do.
4 webinars called Emotional Freedom Program. Yeah. And it's specifically teaching skills how to perceive emotions, to see that, oh, I'm feeling it, but it's not me. I am not angry. I am not afraid. I am a spiritual have a human experience, feeling some fear, feeling some anger, how to language so that it starts to become a habit, how to perceive what isn't yours and get it out of your system. And also really good skills on how to speak with other people, to mirror them so that they get heard, so that they can speak to you when you're not going, oh, it's going to be all right, don't worry. Or, oh, God, there they go again, over and over. Or someone says, oh, but let me tell you about what happened to me. My story. So how to be able to sit back and go, oh, here's what I hear you're saying. Is that what you mean? Yeah, okay. And the bottom line, of course, is getting free from fear and shame, which are the lowest frequencies. So a fair amount of that is focused on it. So that's called Emotional Freedom Program. There'll be a link below.
Can they download those materials? Because we still are wondering if the internet is going to go off at any point.
Good point.
Yeah, the fact that all the army is starting to come out doesn't necessarily mean martial law. It might mean that they're planning to arrest the people that have been waiting a long time to be arrested, in which case they just don't want you out on the street where you could get hurt along the way. So anything that you can download would be very helpful. See if you can get them onto your computer, and then if there is any time where the internet goes off, then you've still got plenty there.
I have paper books, but I also am online to my library. So I'm going to download a few books from there just to make sure. There's a few books that I haven't read for a long time that I'm really enjoying right now. One is called Initiation, and the author is Elizabeth H. H-A-I-C-H, I think. And it's not new, but she's in Germany in, I think, around the time of the war, and she starts having these experiences of remembering a past life as an Egyptian priestess. And it starts when she's really young, and she's like, I call you mother, but you're not my real mother, and he's not my real father at age 5 or something. I want to go home to my real mommy and daddy. In situations where she sees her first sunrise, and she's like, no, sunrise is supposed to be fast and really, really colorful. That's not a way a sunrise works. And their parents are thinking, because that's the way it is in Egypt. She's having memories of her lifetimes in Egypt. And she goes into describing the various skills they develop, including emotional freedom type skills, where they learn to first bring up memories or thoughts to trigger emotions, and then do alternating. So bring up those memories or thoughts for joy, and then switch over to shame, and then go back to joy, back to shame. And ultimately, they end up realizing that the emotional state is not caused by the mental thought. The mental thought is, we make the connections, but those things out there are not what's causing what you're feeling on the inside. Of course, that worked for me, because that's totally my program. That's what I've done with my life.
I remember you talking about that one before, because it reminded you of the exercise that Mercredam had given about the coats, changing coats. The idea of being able to use coats as your emotions, so that they're not you, they're something that you wear. And so you picture yourself a big rack of different types of coats. You bring in what it is that you're really focusing on. So at the time, for me, I was under incredible stress. I put myself in that situation, I would say, is probably a better way to put it. And then say, okay, picture that stress as a coat. All right, so you can describe the coat if that's going to help you make it more realistic, but you can feel it as a coat. And so I kind of got myself into that state of just feeling what that was. And he said, okay, now take it off. Right, take it off. So you're putting it, and you put it on the rack. What do you feel? And I'm like, it's totally neutral. I don't feel anything. Okay, what's the opposite of that? So it's kind of the same exercise. Choose a different coat. Let's put that one on. Okay, and then you switch. Let's put that coat on, then put the other coat on. Put the stress coat on, put the other coat on. The calm coat on, And then as you switch between them, okay, see if you can put both coats on, one on each arm. Can you hold them together? Because he says when you get to the point where you can hold both together, then you can rise above it. There's something to do with that. Actually, aside from emotions, I remember at one point learning about Kuan Yin, who's a advanced spiritual being that's been on this planet. Lots of people refer to Kuan Yin as, their guiding light and this kind of thing. And they were always talking about her as a female. And I didn't know that. So they just kept Kuan Yin, Kuan Yin, Kuan Yin. I didn't know what that was. And so I thought, let's see if I can tune in, because sometimes I can. I just tuning in, like calling Kuan Yin, calling Kuan Yin. And then, bam, straight away was right next to me, this young guy. He looked about maybe 16 or something, beaming with light. It's a bit like the cartoon Avatar. This young boy with a shaved head and clothes, and he was just so beaming and gorgeous and funny, like a great sense of humor. And he just kind of swished around and then went. And I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. What a neat boy, And then I started reading, get onto the internet, and go, oh, they're talking about a woman. How can that be? And then I found out later that it actually was an entity born as a boy. And then as it got older, it learnt to hold both together and then rise above it and then be able to make a choice as to whatever it wanted to be. Wow. So that is not to do with transgender, transsexual stuff. It is not. It's being able to embrace and fully accept both. I think what we've found so far with transgender is that they reject their own gender and reach for the other, whereas in this you totally accept both. So that's interesting. It's an idea of maybe this is what enlightenment is about, is to be able to take the polarity and then lift above it.
That's exactly what I experienced maybe 30 years ago.
You mean you're a boy?
No. Good one. No. The feeling both and popping above. So I was doing really deep emotional work. I until I was about 25, I carried a heavy black hole of shame in my chest. I didn't want anybody ever to see it. And I just said, I have to get rid of that. So at one point I was working with two people, a husband and wife, who were great teachers and friends. Later they became friends. But it was, I'm on the floor in a ball. I can't even sit in my chair, and just sobbing with so much shame and hopelessness. It feels like it's going to destroy me. And all of a sudden I popped up, and I was looking down at that, I guess from my higher self point of view, going, wow, that's intense. And then I popped back in and was like, oh, it's so terrible. And whoop, I popped back out. Wow, that's really intense. Cool. Then popped back in. And at one point it went faster. And then all of a sudden I was seeing both sides. I was holding both points of view, the point of view of the higher self and the humans. And that's when I realized human suffers, but it's just because it's this human part of it. That really shifted my awareness of understanding of emotions and also of who I was. So that's exactly what you said, holding both sides and popping up.
Wow. So there's obviously plenty of things for us to do while we're at home, whether you end up doing deep emotional work or just having a good, honest, open discussion with the people that you live with and dealing with relationship issues or your own baggage along the way. There's always plenty of help on the internet.
And there's time now for journaling. Writing down your dreams. You don't have to jump up and get your coffee and get out the door. Stay, rest in bed, write down your dreams. Start doing that kind of work. This is a great time for that.
It is.
And I was talking to Saint Germain last night, and he was just like, relax. It's all where it's supposed to be. You're where you're supposed to be. The what's happening on the planet is part of the transformation of this planet, and there's nothing to worry about.
That's very good advice. It's time to turn your mind towards what you want life to be. This is your opportunity, like you're saying. Write it down, dream it up, get creative. What do you really want? Do you really want to go back to that high-rise building in the city and working 9 to 5 or worse, 8 till 7? Do you really want to keep doing that? Or is there some other way that you can work? Can you be more productive where you are at home? So enjoy your time at home and enjoy your time in your jammies.
Talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.